could it be? But me, your man, Louie T, welcome to Lockdown Coverage, week number 7 in the National Football League. Baltimore Ravens on the road taking on the Minnesota Vikings. This game had all the makings of ass whooping because the Ravens can't score and the Vikings are so good defensively. Yet the Vikings defensively, while they did what they were supposed to do in this game, really holding the Ravens down, the 16 points in this game, very misleading. They didn't score a touchdown until the very last play of the game. So really, they were stuck on 9 with 3 field goals for much of this game. But I was impressed once again with the Ravens defensively in this game. Now, granted, they did give up some rush yards, and they had their big run-stuffing nose tackle, Brandon Williams, back, and he flashed. But they still gave it up to Latavius Murray, and that was really disappointing to see them give it up to a guy that hadn't really done much of anything this season. I told you last week, though, if you watched this program a week ago, I said Latavius Murray is a guy that you should be glad that you signed. I said, doesn't this signing look like it was well-timed and it couldn't have come at a better time? Like, it was a good signing. After you drafted Dalvin Cook, it seemed like that signing was going to be wasteful. You know, something that you might regret. Like, why did we sign this guy? We don't even use him. Now, with the injury to Dalvin Cook, that Murray signing has become huge. It's loomed large, and this is the first time you've really been able to see the benefits that you're reaping because of making shrewd moves in the offseason, like signing Latavius Murray. He was outstanding in this game. To me, that's the biggest takeaway offensively from this game, is that the run game is still alive, well, and kicking in Minnesota despite losing Dalvin Cook. You can run behind a much improved offensive line. This offensive line, you must give them credit. This was a putrid group last year. They got all of those guys out of there, swapped them out for 5 brand new players, and this offensive line has been the one constant this year. The quarterback position has changed. The receivers have changed. The running backs have changed. But the one position that hasn't changed, that has stayed consistent for most of the year, has been the offensive line. They've been the constant. They've been the glue that's held this Vikings offense together. And again, we don't talk offensive line as much as we should, but this Vikings group up front deserves credit. They opened up holes for Dalvin Cook in the run game. Now they have a totally different style runner in Latavius Murray. They're opening up holes for him now. They protected Sam Bradford. Now they're protecting for Case Keenum. 2 totally different quarterbacks. One, you don't know where he's going to be because he can get out of the pocket and move. The other one, you better protect because he's a statue back there. He's not going anywhere. So they've had to protect for 2 different type of quarterbacks. Number of different receivers out there. Jarius Wright was the star of the game receiving wise. I thought he showed up in this game, made a ton of plays in the absence of Stephon Diggs for the 2nd consecutive week. So you don't know who's going to get you. Every week, for the most part, you can count on Adam Thielen showing up and giving you some production. Now it's good to know that anybody can get you. Treadwell is getting more touches, more targets, more opportunities, even though there was an interception thrown trying to get him the football. This was a weird first 3 minutes of the game. There was so much action in the first 3 minutes. You get a Ravens punt that turns into a huge Marcus Sherrills return. The very next play, the Vikings go for the jugular, a home run ball to Treadwell that gets batted up in the air like 3 times. Treadwell tries to make this amazing one-hand grab and ends up batting the ball in the air, gets picked off by the Ravens, who then the next play or two, they throw the football to Mike Wallace, who then gets his block knocked off, fumbles the football, looks like it's Vikings ball. They call defensive receiver, which was the right call, a huge hit by Sendejo. He'll get fined for that one, knocking Mike Wallace basically unconscious out on the field, knocking his helmet off. So a ton of action in like the first 3 minutes of this ball game. And from that point on, the Ravens moved that football down the field, got a field goal. From that point on, it was all Vikings all the time in this football game. And they ran away with this game gradually. They didn't just have an outburst of points. They gradually moved away from the Ravens in this game, kicked about 5 field goals, scored a touchdown, and that was all she wrote. Missed an extra point, but it was more than enough in this game to get it done. Like I said, the score is very misleading. It was 24-9 at the end of the game for the most part, and the Ravens ended up getting a touchdown to Chris Moore on the very last play of the game to make it 24-16. So this was really a dominant performance by the Vikings. And before we even get into the particulars quickly, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content in 2017 and beyond. We're changing the game. Want you to help us do that by simply hitting the subscribe button and becoming a member of the Louie T Network. I'm also on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and of course on YouTube. All of the links to those social media platforms down in the description below, so check that out. Also in the description below is how you can donate to this channel via those two sites, Patreon and PayPal. You see those two links before you. Those links are also in the description below. If you can, I urge you to donate to this channel, as we're trying to do big things, and the best way and the most efficient way to do that is through donations from viewers like you. If you can donate, please do so. If you can't, all I ask is that you continue to support this channel the way that you always have, by watching, by liking, by sharing these videos. That being said, the Minnesota Vikings dominated this game on the ground. They didn't need a lot from Case Keenum, and you don't want to ask too much of Case Keenum, and they haven't the last couple of weeks. The one game they asked a ton from Case Keenum was the Tampa game, and he delivered. Other than that, you just asked Case Keenum to manage the game, minimize the turnovers, and aside from taking a shot down the field to Treadwell, he did that in this game. So as long as he's not turning it over, you can turn around, hand the football off to the secret weapon, Jerick McKinnon or Latavius Murray. You're going to be just fine in Minnesota offensively. There's enough weapons to spread the football around to, whether it's Michael Floyd or Jarius Wright stepping up in the absence of Diggs, or, of course, Adam Thielen or Kyle Rudolph at the tight end position, which are two of your more reliable targets out on the football field. There are enough guys to spread it around to that you shouldn't have to worry about a problem with getting the football to your skill players. So there's enough on this team to get by until you get either Teddy Bridgewater back off of injury or Sam Bradford back. Whichever one comes first, you'll take it. But in any event, you've got enough time. You've got the Browns next week. That should be a win on the road. Then you've got the bye week. So there's time for this thing to get where you need it to be for this team to really become a contending football team, because no one is afraid of Case Keenum. Even though this defense is legit and good enough to win a Super Bowl, no one's afraid of Case Keenum at quarterback. So you're going to need someone to come back and put a stranglehold on that quarterback position. Whether it's Bradford or Bridgewater, it doesn't matter. They just need one of those other quarterbacks with the last name that starts with a B to come back and take the horns, the reins by the horn, and take this team to where it needs to go. Defensively, this is another outstanding performance by this Vikings defense. I felt like Anthony Barr was everywhere in this football game. They got after Joe Flacco. There was one hit where Flacco's running around and he gets absolutely plastered by Danielle Hunter. They were all over him. You had Hunter getting in on the act. Barr was in the backfield constantly getting after Flacco as well. Griffin got off the snap one time and just got to Flacco. They were all over Joe Flacco in this football game. The pass rush was just suffocating. They were able to pretty much stifle the run game of the Ravens. Alex Collins wasn't able to break off a big run. He seems to do that at least once a week. Wasn't able to do that in this particular game. And so no success for Buck Allen, no success for Collins means all the weight of the Ravens offense is on Joe Flacco, and he can't handle that. Not with the lack of targets that are in Baltimore at this current moment. And then you take Mike Wallace away on the second possession of the game. There's no way that this team is able to function. They already struggle to score. You take away another weapon with their limited weapons as it is. They were going to struggle in this game, and they continue to do so. And this Vikings team dominated on special teams with the big return by Sherrills early in the game. Even though it amounted to no points, it backed the Ravens up. And, the interception backed the Ravens up a little bit. But nonetheless, they won special teams, defense, offense, and that's why they dominated this game 24-16. You go to the Ravens side of things, it's an offense that continues to struggle. Flacco and this offense is just, they're nauseating. I mean, you see how many pass attempts Flacco had in this game? Like damn near 40 pass attempts, yet he didn't even throw for 200 yards passing. I mean, this dink and dunk, and I told you there's no one to stretch the field. You know, you've got Chris Moore who can run, but again, no one's afraid of this Ravens passing attack. Mike Wallace isn't what he once was. And so there's no one to really stretch the field. So everything is short and underneath and to intermediate. It's dink and dunk city, and no one's afraid of this Ravens offense. The run game is inconsistent at best. And so this team is going to continue to struggle to score points. Defensively, Brandon Williams came back, which was huge. And he flashed a couple of times, made some plays, but they gave it up on the ground, which was very surprising. I thought they were going to be able to stop the run and force Case Keenum to beat them. And that's the way you beat the Vikings right now, is you stop the run, you make them one-dimensional, and you force a backup quarterback to beat you and hope that he does backup quarterback things with the football. Well, the Ravens didn't stop the run. They allowed Latavius Murray to have his best showing as a Viking running back to date, going over 100 yards on just like 13 carries or so. I mean, he had a great day. Some big runs, including a long touchdown run where he was able to extend the football over the goal line and get in. That you can't have happen if you're the Ravens and you expect to have a chance to win. Now you have a Thursday night football game against Miami and quick turnaround. Maybe you can get a win there, but I just don't see this Ravens team turning things around this season. And I've said it before, and I'll say it once more. It's a shame because this defense is good enough. This defense is good enough to make it to the playoffs, to have a shot, to compete. And this offense is just so bad. It cancels out anything good that the defense does and then takes it a step further and then starts to do harm to the football team. So not only does it cancel out all of the goodwill that the defense does, but then it starts to do harm to the overall health of this football team. And that's very frustrating if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan. Vikings get the win, 24-16. Don't let the score fool you. The Vikings dominated this game with 5 field goals and a touchdown, and they were up 24-9 for the majority of the fourth quarter. They were up big enough to where they were comfortable. This was not a one-score game, as the score indicates. This was a Vikings clear, decisive win over the Baltimore Ravens as they go to 5-2 in the season. Leaders in the clubhouse, as you expect them to continue to try to separate themselves from the rest of this division with no Aaron Rodgers. This is the Vikings division to lose, and I think they're going to prove that over the next couple of weeks. Meanwhile, the Ravens blew an opportunity to take advantage of a backup quarterback on the road and lose this game, drop to 3-4 on the season. We'll get to some comments quickly before we get out of here. Isaac Schnook says, I'm fascinated to see what the Vikings do in the future with their QBs. I'm hearing that Teddy Bridgewater could be available as early as Week 10 versus the Redskins. So we'll keep our eyes on that situation as it's a very fluid situation in Minnesota for sure. Cloud says, this game was really bad for the Ravens. Can't blame Flacco fully. The offense as a whole is just bad. They need a whole rehaul on the offensive side. They need a lot of retooling on that side of the football. A lot of people love to blame Flacco for all of the ills of this offense, and he is largely to blame, but there's not enough talent. Flacco has always flourished when he's had a reliable tight end and at least one veteran target he can get the football to. Right now, he has neither because you can't count on Jeremy Maclin to stay healthy, and their tight end situation continues to be morbidly bad with all of the injuries to their key players at that tight end position. Dark Sealer 1995 says, hashtag Joe Trasho. Guy had one playoff run and has been average his whole career. I beg to differ. He's got the most road playoff victories in NFL history. So that debunks your theory of just one run in the playoffs. The man has the most road playoff victories in NFL history, but he has struggled, no doubt about that. JCamMan99 says, I think the Vikings just need to stick with Case Keenum this year. Let them figure out the knees next year. If you stick with Case Keenum, and you could argue that may be the best route to go, because if Bridgewater comes back, he hasn't played football in essentially 2 years. You're asking a guy to step in and take the controls of a team that's kind of moving along, smooth sailing, and he can come in and be extremely rusty, do more damage than good to this football team. But You know he's an upgrade over Keenum. You know Bradford is an upgrade over Keenum. You need someone other than Case Keenum because you know at the end of the day when things get tight and you're playing up against playoff caliber teams, Case Keenum is not going to be able to get the job done. And that's why I don't think they're going to want to stick with Case Keenum. Once one of those other guys is healthy, they're going to make that move for sure. Trey Vike says, what do you feel about Trey Wayans? I like him, but I don't trust him. I think he's coming along. I think both of the young corners, him and Mackenzie Alexander, are playing better football. I thought Mackenzie Alexander was going to be horrible in the slot. He's actually playing much better football, a lot more confident football. Trey Wayans, I like him a lot. He did give up the touchdown at the very end of the game. But again, Trey Wayans is a guy, he'll giveth, he'll taketh away. He'll give up some plays, but he'll also make some plays. Remember the Green Bay game last year at home? They picked on him all game long, but he made the one play at the end of the ball game that helped them win. That's Trey Wayans in a nutshell. You may make some plays against him, but eventually he's going to get you at some point. I like Trey Wayans. I think he's going to be just fine with that Vikings football team. Dark Steeler 1995 says, this Ravens team has zero depth, and that lies with Ozzie. Their wide receiver group is bad, even when healthy, and their outside linebacker group is bad when Suggs is your best guy. I tend to agree with a lot of that, and we give Ozzie a lot of credit for his drafting over the years, but he's failed them in certain situations, receiver being probably his biggest failure to date. They've relied too heavily on veteran receivers over the life of Ozzie Newsome's run as general manager. I've went all the way back, and I've done this in previous videos, all the way back to Derek Mason. Derek Mason led to Anquan Bolden, who then passed the torch to Steve Smith Sr., who then passed the torch to now Mike Wallace, and I guess you could argue Jeremy Maclin, but bottom line is they need a bit, and they thought they got that man in Bashad Perriman, but they reached for him. I didn't think he was worthy of a first-round selection, and they're really in trouble at receiver. And like you said, they don't have anybody. I think injuries have really hurt them in a number of positions, and that's why their depth looks so bad. I think they've got some guys that can get after the quarterback, but they just need to stay healthy. But they could use a stud on the edges, which they currently don't seem to have. So again, I can't disagree with anything that you've just stated. MJ Meyer 10 says, Case Keenum has played meh at best, leaves many yards on the field. And that's why at the first sign of health of either Bradford or Bridgewater, you got to make the switch for sure. And so with that being said, Vikings dominate a game that scoreboard-wise doesn't tell the story, 24-16, run their record to 5-2 on the season, and have the Cleveland Browns on the road next week. You got to think they're going to be 6-2 heading into their bye week after next week's game, but you can't take anybody for granted. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens have a short week of work and turn around Thursday Night Football against the Dolphins. Maybe that short week is the best thing for them as they try to turn around what has been a very bad offense this season on a short week versus a Dolphins team that is slowly beginning to gain confidence. We'll see what happens on Thursday night as the Ravens drop this game and drop to 3-4 on the season. That's going to do it for your man Louie T here on Lockdown Coverage. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on Lockdown Coverage. Come back and join us at the break down anything and everything in the National Football League. Much more to come. Don't you go anywhere. Lockdown Coverage, holding you down, covering the entire National Football League like a blanket. I'll see you in a few.